Since 2006, the One Book, One Campus, One Community initiative has been focusing on building intellectual and social rapport among students, staff, faculty, and members of the Northwest Indiana community. And something with which we've been pretty successful is getting members of our community to also do our readings and join our discussions. And of course, the focus is on not only important books to read, but important social issues. And of course, there's a whole process of nominations and voting on the campus to select a book. And the next slide will reveal the book that has been selected for next year. And it's They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. There's lots of nursing students here trying to figure out what that means. But the author is Hanif Abdurraqib. He's 32 years old. He's a music writer and poet from Columbus, Ohio, and who is currently at Butler University here in Indiana. And the book is a wide-ranging collection of essays, largely on popular music, that shows a surprising and refreshingly varied enthusiasm for and knowledge of pop music of all sorts. And that includes rap, rock, and emo, and mainstream pop and jazz. The book gives loving attention to all kinds of music and is rooted in the actual circumstances and lived experience of being a fan. The essays describes what it's like to be a member of an audience, a group of friends with shared tastes, a neighborhood or wider community, and living in a particular historical moment. The book was recommended as a model of thinking about diversity and an occasion to reflect on the ways in which popular music can bring us together, even as we have divergent tastes, experiences, and responses to it. So I think there should be many possibilities for music performances, video, and film screenings, listening parties, and discussions, and speakers on popular music and difference. And I think it ought to be a stimulating experience with plenty of possibilities for academic connections, such as we've seen this year with Women in Power by Mary Beard. So this is always fun to be able to say what the next book is going to be, but maybe the best part is that if you take out your program, I lost my program. Anyway, if you take out your program, if you have a red sticker on the program, you will receive a free book, a free copy of the book. So outside the registration desk here is where you will find it.
So come see me later, and I'll make sure that you get your copy.
See, it's always good to have on your program. And so we'll all look forward to reading They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. But also, I think we have some thank yous for today, the entire day, but also the One Book Committee and all those who recommended books, but also all of the arrangements for today's program. These are all the folks who deserve our sincere thanks, and I wonder if you would join me in saying thank you. Also, thank you to everyone who came to today's event. And actually, there's a red dot on my that doesn't count. Just checking. I don't like to bypass free if one can help. Anyway, it's now really a pleasure to introduce Donna Hylton. She is a women's rights activist and criminal justice reform advocate. She speaks publicly about the issues facing incarcerated women and girls and the significant impact of the great increase in the female prison population and the effect that is having on families, children, and of course our communities. Donna's own life took an unexpected life-turning change when she was a child. She was lured from Jamaica to the United States. Her memoir, A Little Piece of Light, tells the story of the childhood abuse she endured, the spiral of events that led to incarceration, and how she learned to live, love, and trust all over again. Since 2013, Donna has spoken to thousands across the United States regarding the end of mass incarceration, recidivism, and prison gender inequality. Through various social initiatives, including her own organization, From Life to Life, Donna passionately advocates for women who have been victims of abuse and the criminal justice system. So I wonder if you will please join me in welcoming Donna Hylton, who will talk about the walk to freedom, prison, gender inequality, and justice.
As Ms. Hylton comes to the podium, we have a very short clip to show you some background of the information that she will be talking about.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for sitting through that. Thank you for just being here. It is really an honor, and I'm humbled by it. Before I even go anywhere else, I would like to take a second to a moment, actually, of silence. I'm doing so because as I go across the world speaking about the harms, the abuse, and the trauma that a lot of women and girls experience, specifically domestic violence, it again hit close to home. So last Thursday, it'll be 7 days today, my cousin has been missing. She lives in Texas. But it appears strongly that her husband killed her. He chopped her up and probably burnt her, burnt most of her. And there's search parties out in San Antonio, Texas. Her name is Andrea McDonald. So I just want to take a moment of silence for all victims, all victims. Thank you. Thank you. Before I even say anything else, I know you watched, you sat through 32 minutes of this docu-short. I just want to know, does anyone have anything to say? Do you feel anything? There's nothing that you cannot say to me, even if it's anger, if it's whatever, because that's how we start a process of healing and understanding. So if anyone has anything to say, please do so. Yes, Mary.
Can you just speak a little bit more to the significance of the exit doors? Because this is the third time I've watched that. And that's what jumped out to me most, is that how we even look at an exit sign and what it has different meanings for us depending on where we are. So can you speak a little bit more to how that really felt for you, walking and not riding?
So let me see if I can put it a little bit more, it's more tangible for you to understand. So remember the cell that you saw when I was talking about solitary confinement? That's how most of the cells look. Solitary is a little different, has a little more concrete, has more steel, and it's less sunlight, right? Not all, they don't really have that much sunlight, any of them, but that's even way less sunlight than anything. So prison in itself feels like that. It's like that. There are no doors really that we can just push and walk out. Like that exit door, you can push it and open it up. So we have doors, right, that are steel doors. Not only are they locked, but they're chained, right? They might have some kind of bars across them as well. So we can't open the exit door. And I think that I said that in this case because there was one particular evening on the unit that I was on. A woman started a fire in her cell, and she was trying to commit suicide. And she was way down from the in front part of the unit, and I was down there as well. And I smelled the smoke, and I was like, it was getting stronger, and I looked, and I saw smoke coming, and I was like, oh my God. So my first instinct was to go in, to go save her, which I might not have been too smart, but it was just instinctual. But there was an exit door, because she was at the last cell, that I couldn't open, because the windows are so small, and the ventilation isn't that well. So I wanted to open the door. So, because it started to smoke, but by that time, the smoke alarms had gone off and stuff like that, but she was all the way down at the end of the cell, at the unit. And I think that moment was very significant, and it stayed with me for a long time. So I paid attention to all the exit doors. There were some, of course, you could walk out like the unit doors or maybe a program door, but for the most part, the ones that could really lead out, you know, or help you in emergency situations, you couldn't get out of. So that's why it was it continued to be very significant for me. Thank you for paying attention to that. Anybody else?
Kind of more of a question, I guess.
Sure.
First, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story for those who are not really aware of the experience of being a woman in the world anywhere, the good or the bad with it. It's hard, especially as a man, to put myself in those shoes, other than family, friends I met, stories like this. And it helps to do that more, get a little closer to understand and empathize and try to be proactive, change it. But I guess what really stood out to me is that at what point or points really do you start to get this bigger perspective of the bigger picture of being able to not just be like an advocate, but be active for yourself and others.
Thank you for that. Can you hear me if I'm not right there? I like to talk with people, not at you. That's just who I am. So I went in, I was 20. By the time I was 20 years old, I was so severely traumatized and didn't really know it, or I didn't understand it. Mostly every adult person around me was not a positive person. There were some, right? But the ones that stood out more and did more were the ones that were harmful. And so I was very traumatized. And what I did, and I don't believe I remember saying it there, when I was brought to this country by the couple, I was never allowed outside, right? So that's why I always felt in prison. That's why I didn't like that show, or I gravitated to that show, but it gave me fear. But you know, you don't understand, you can't really reason well as a young person, right? And I didn't really understand that I was in prison. I didn't have a key to get in the apartment. I didn't have a key to get out. I was locked in the apartment. And I lived on the 4th floor of a 19-story co-op. And in the summertime, when kids don't have to go to school, there's nowhere to go, I was locked in watching kids outside playing. But what I was also watching were people committing suicide, jumping from the roof, or their terraces. And you know, it was once enough. So I would be severely traumatized by that. And then what was going on in the house as well. And it didn't happen daily, but it happened, I can count on my hand 5 times when I was there. So, and I was there for quite some years, right? And so all of that just piled up and piled up. And you know, people don't understand when women say, or people say, this boys, men as well, say that when people say, why didn't you get out? Why didn't you leave? It's hard to understand why a person doesn't leave or get out. Children can't leave or get out. Like children just can't leave and get out because we depend on, we depend on adults to help us, right? That's just how it is. And you know, what was used against me was I was smart. But I was smart when I read a book. I can understand a book and read it in, you know, comprehension, and I could, you know, recited, I could do all those things. Math, I was a good, that was not everyday life, right? There's a difference, there's a separation between the two. So I had no social skills, I had nothing. And so I got caught up into a crime that I could not get out of. I became a victim in it as well. I say it in my book, I was raped in that crime as well. And so, and no one ever asked me about me, no one wanted to know who I was, what I would, anything. And I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have been able to answer that question anyway, not at that time. So by the time I had turned 20, all these things had happened to me, then I got sent to state, okay, to prison, for 25 to life. I didn't understand 25 to life. 25, you know, when you're 17, you know, 25 sounds old, right? Like, come on. I remember that, like 20, I was like, what does 25 even mean? You know, and even with all the stuff going on, we think that we're invincible, but also when you're so traumatized, you own everything that anyone's ever done to you. So I was carrying around every hurt, every piece of everything that anyone ever did to me, and you couldn't tell me that it wasn't my fault. You couldn't tell me that it was not my fault, that this man who I was told to call dad started raping me. You couldn't tell me that the teacher, it wasn't my fault that the teacher didn't believe me and instead turned it against me and made me a liar. You couldn't tell me all these things. The police officer pulls me over on the side of a dark street and rapes me. You just couldn't tell me that, you know, those things weren't my fault. So by the time I got to Bedford, I was like, I felt alone. I felt like I was the only person that ever happened to, because you feel alone in your pain, your trauma. You're just alone in it. And then when I got there and I started realizing that I wasn't alone, it shifted something in me. Because what I had done without realizing it throughout my life, I was holding on to hope. I was holding on to something. I was holding on to that light. When I was in that closet, it was dark, and I was that little girl, the doorway, the crack, the light right there, it was bright for me. And I lost myself in that light. And it was the only place that I found comfort. It was the only place that I found help, because I didn't feel pain, I didn't feel anything. I felt something that was warm and loving, right? And that's what kept me going. But I believe that about people, that we have that ability in us, we have it in us. We're born loving. We're taught to hate. We're taught to look at each other as different. We're taught to look at each other as less than. We're taught to believe that we are whatever, either better or not better than another person. All that stuff is taught. There's only one thing that's not taught, and that's love. And so I just continued to gravitate to that, not knowing though, because I was so messed up. It didn't happen overnight, it took many years. So when the women and then the young women started talking and I started hearing them, listening to them, I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. I was like really happy, like yes. You know, I didn't feel like this alien. And then as time went on, I was angry because I realized I wasn't alone. And the stories that I heard, I felt like, oh my God, I need to be quiet, because I felt like I couldn't even, it wasn't a comparison thing, but like what the next person was saying was so much that I just had to like just be still. And I started realizing that like something's wrong here. Like, why is this prison filled with so many stories like mine or worse? Something's wrong. So, you know, I also don't believe that we change. I don't really believe people change. I believe that we become who we are. We're born with something. And we're born knowing whether it gets nurtured or not because of circumstances and situations, and so it can go the other way. But I believe that we're born who we are, and it just takes the right circumstances and situations and people and nurturing and all cultivation to bring that out. And so I held on to that, and I started getting involved with the group, or I was part of the group actually, the core group of women, some women in Bedford Hills that created the first HIV/AIDS program in the world actually, to respond to the crises that was happening in the prison. And because of that, there were people that were coming into the prison visiting from all over the world to model their program, or create one, to model it after our program is called ACE, AIDS Education and AIDS Counseling and Education. And that was in by the time we got it really up and running, it was like 1990. And then I went on to being involved, or I was already involved with the family violence program, which came out of a series of hearings that some women had with legislatures in Albany to talk about why they were in prison, because they were actually there for killing their abusers or hurting their abusers because they snapped. And it doesn't make it right. They weren't saying that they were right in doing that. They were trying to get people to understand why they did that. After so many years of abuse and pain and trauma, we snap. There are things that happen. Right? Mine, I was just so gullible and so vulnerable and just so broken that I just like, okay, I should have in my head be able to say, it's not right. Why would I want to go witness a sexual encounter between a man I had no knowledge of, didn't know his name or anything, did not know Mr. B. Didn't know it. I should have known that that was wrong. But of course I didn't know it was wrong. Because it was happening to me, it's like, okay, I'm just trying to find a way out, and I had a daughter as young as I was pregnant at 15. So my daughter is a product of rape, because it was that grown man that took me away saying that he would help me. She's a product of. I was 14 years old, I was 15. Nowhere near the age of consent. And it wouldn't be consensual anyway, because I just wanted to get away. I needed help, and nobody would help me. And my adoptive mother being or eventually becoming one of the directors for New York State Mental Health is telling. She knew the right words. She knew what to do. She could manipulate the system. She was the system. So that's why when I talk about how systems failed me, it's because so many different people represent those systems and continue to represent those systems. That's why I speak about them. Because it depends on who we are as a person, how we react and what we do for or not do for people. And that's why I know that we have the ability to do and to be better. But people need to understand what can happen or what does happen when we don't speak up, when we don't stand up, when we don't say anything. We know, Bedford Hills itself has 800 and something women. It's the only maximum security prison for women in New York State. It's one of the smallest though, right? So the medium max prison is larger than that. It's just funny how that works out. But that small prison is large and is huge in what it contains, who it's holding, And we don't like to think about that. We don't think about people that are in our prisons. Everyone has a story. There's a story behind the story. All people saw in the news and in the papers in 1985 was, oh, this girl gang. Well, no girl gang. It was like not a gang. I was the face of it. And now I know why I was the face. I was being exploited even by media and by the police and by the system, because I was the better looking one. I was the youngest one, and for whatever. And so we don't realize that even with media and journalism, that we are exploited. They can exploit people. We don't really know the truth. I was just on an interview, it was just aired today. I'm not sure everyone in this room knows about the Breakfast Club, but I was there. Okay, I was on it this morning. So I talked about how there's a Wikipedia page that no one, my publishing team, my literary team, my gal Friday over there, none of us created it. But it has so much stuff in it. It's like, wait a minute. They said I'm a monster, I raped and sodomized a gay man, and did, like, absolutely no truth to that, absolutely at all. I don't even know where they got it from. But this is what happens when you create things, and it's like that little, that grapevine thing, when you start the telephone game, you whisper something in one person's ear, and it keeps going and going and going. By the time it's the last person, it's like, well, where's the truth there? It's a lie. So I put myself out there. I willingly do so because I feel that we have to become uncomfortable. We've become so comfortable for so long. We've become so comfortable. And people need to understand that predators know prey. Predators know prey. And we know when someone's being preyed on. We definitely know when children are being preyed on. And so we need to speak up and stand up. And I stress strongly, like I did on the show, that sexual predators want us to acknowledge their power, but they don't want to acknowledge our pain. There's too much of that going on. And it's not just against women or little girls, it's boys as well, men, right? But it's just wrong, we're human beings. So what I try to do is to humanize those of us who society don't know, who've been silenced, who continue to be marginalized, who continue to have stories told about us that are not our truths. Not our truths. There might be much truth in there, but by the time it's finished, it's a complete lie because it's lost, right? It's lost. And so it allows you to move away from us, to disassociate, to disconnect from us and not see our humanity. And I'm not saying that people don't do bad things. People do bad things. There are those, absolutely. And there are people that do bad things. There might be that time in their life, that moment, because we don't know what's going on in their lives. But does that mean that that person doesn't have the capacity or the ability to change and to become better? And what we don't realize is that when we send people to prison and we lock people up in prison, and we don't focus on rehabilitating that person, they can come out worse than they went in if they were really that bad at all. There are a lot of people I know, because they have mental health issues, that are locked up in prison and shouldn't be in prison for mental health reasons. They just shouldn't. Why would you lock someone up without any real treatment of the issue that they have, that root cause, and think that that's okay? Because I always like to tell people to really educate you to understand that 95% of people that are in our prisons and jails in this country are getting out. Are getting out. The people that have life on their sentences are not as many as you believe. They want you to think. They're not. So how do we want people to come out? That's why we created those programs in Bedford Hills. Because we know it's a lifetime to us. It's a lifetime to a person that's 20, 25 is like, that's a whole nother lifetime. You know, I used to joke about it so I could really understand it and just to deal with it and say, oh, by the time I get out, it's going to be the Justin age. And the car's going to be flying. And they are kind of, they're hovering, right? So, you know, all this technology. And that's another thing. When we do so much time, decades, we're thrown out into a world that we have absolutely no clue about. I can't walk the street, but very well. I could walk in here that was kind of quiet and scary. But you come to New York or any other place, I'm lost in Chicago. Right? Oh, I was there yesterday. Yes. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to the corner. I'm going to wait for the light to tell me what to do because it's too much. It's like so much. So when people see that people are not adjusting well, right? People don't understand that. It's hard to adjust in a world that has changed drastically from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s. You know, and when I talk, I don't want people to think that, you know, I try to be mindful of those and say, well, you know, there's a victim in the crime. What about the victims? And that's why I do it. I carry Mr. V with me every single second of every single day. Every victim of sense. I don't think there's any murder that's not senseless, right? It's senseless, no matter who does it. We have to look at all the killings, all the murders that are happening right now. It shouldn't be justified because someone's wearing a badge as well. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Sometimes we just gotta step up and stand up. And it shouldn't be because we have a different skin tone. It really shouldn't be that. It should just be that we are human beings and we just know right from wrong. We have to take a moral high ground. And this is the best that I can do. This moral high ground is the one that I choose to take today. And this is how I bring it. But I just wanna always, I see your answer. I always wanna get people to understand that I'm not a monster. I was never a monster. I don't think like a monster. I don't think like a criminal. I don't even know what that really means. I couldn't steal a grape from the supermarket. Like, I'm not that person. I'm just not. And a lot of us who have been incarcerated or incarcerated are just really not those people. But again, yes, people do bad things. But how do we want to treat people? Do we want to show them some kind of compassion and understanding, say, even though you're wrong and you might have hurt someone, but you still deserve to understand why and how you did what you did. Because when a person recognizes the harm that they've caused, believe me, that's the shift right there. When they recognize the humanity in themselves first, then they will be able to recognize it in you. But how do you get a person to recognize their humanity? You don't treat them like an animal. he don't treat them worse than animals, because we don't treat our animals like that. They're our family, right? We love them, I do. And we don't treat, it's just not right. It's not thing to do. I want to get to your.
You were talking about rehabilitation and watching the video. You ended up getting a college degree while you were incarcerated. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and the impact that it had on your life, and then also how removing the Pell Grant, access to the Pell Grant for prisoners has impacted?
It's in my book. You should read my book. How's that? It is in my book. So I'll say this. So in 1993, 94, when we had President Clinton, there was a crime bill that was drafted and passed into law. And that crime bill was one of the worst things that could have ever happened to any marginalized community, right? Because we have to be real, they're marginalized communities. And the most marginalized of communities are prisons. And so the trickling effect took the TAP and the Pell Grants and all those things away. So that meant that the education that was afforded us, and why people argue about, oh, why should people in prison or jails have an education? Well, again, 95% of people coming out in prison in jails are coming out. So it would be nice if we could give some skills to people who probably never had an opportunity in their own neighborhoods because the resources aren't there, right? It's sad that we have to think that prison should be a place to get these resources, but let's just face reality, sometimes it is. So what happened when that was taken, I actually had completed my associates and my bachelor's at the time. So I had gotten those degrees, but it stopped. And there were so many women that had just started. And the impact that was felt that happened in the prison, it was so thick, it was so tangible. Like they felt like, what am I gonna do now? No clue. First of all, we were women. We weren't gonna walk around the yard lifting weights and doing all those things that you see, but sometimes that is kind of true. But we didn't wanna do that, right? Most part, especially for women, you wanna do better, you wanna know better, you really wanna do something, you want an opportunity. But opportunities weren't afforded for whatever reasons. And so we came together, we got together, a group of women, actually some group of women started the first to cry out and to reach out to the community. And the community heard them, and so people started volunteering and saying, okay, we're gonna come in. We happened to have a good warden at the time. She was very humane, and she understood that who better could tell the women what they need than the women themselves. And so those things that we created came out of her, came with her support, and we were able to reach out to some universities and colleges to form a consortium, and we brought college back to prison and happened in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. And so now that you hear the arguments and stuff in New York State about Cuomo saying whatever, it's because we started it there, and there are other programs that were developed based on our model as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did, but I mean, what was the experience like? How did it change your life?
Oh, mine. Oh, I forgot you said that. How did I get right? So it wasn't the education so much that changed me. It just was part of the things that helped in the process of me becoming a more mature, understanding, healed Donna. It affected me, even though I'd gotten 2 degrees already, it affected me because I watched the impact on the other women. They felt lost. They felt like, what are we gonna do now? Are we just really gonna sit here? It just made you really feel like you were gonna die in prison because there was nothing to do. And the women really wanted to learn. They really wanted to do something. There are women in there that created the first children's program, parenting programs in the country that are modeled. They're from Bedford. They're a nursery program. The women are caretakers. They take care of the babies, the mothers with the babies. They babysit, they take care of, they do so much, but when education was taken, when that was taken, because it's like, oh my God, I want to go to college. Be surprised if you go in certain neighborhoods now, you ask people, do they want to go to school? They want to go to school, but they just don't see how. They don't see the possibility because it's so much that they don't have already, so much lacking, and it's like, how am I going to do this? And oftentimes, we're human beings. Our survival skills are going to set in. Those instincts are going to set in. If I'm hungry, what am I going to do? I want to eat. if I don't have the money or I don't have the means, what am I gonna do? I'm probably gonna steal that grape now, right? I'm just gonna chuck that little mess up and just say, okay, well, I have to eat because my stomach is saying, you have to eat, honey. You have to sleep, bless you. You have, there's things that we just have to do that we're gonna do. And it doesn't make it right. No, it's wrong in which ways if it's not, if it's against law and order, if it's just against, it's just wrong. It's wrong. But again, we just have to understand the impact of what happens to people if we lack certain things, and maybe if there's something else going on outside of that. And so for me, I felt good about being a part of the group that brought education back, that brought the college program back, and because of it, we were able to create a master's program. It was one time. We wanted to see if we could do it perpetual, that it would continue to happen, but it didn't. So I received my master's degree when we brought the college program back. So I was really proud of that, really proud. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to know, recidivism seems to be really high. Do you think that's due to the lack of the programs that we have in our prison system? Not for just females, but males and females?
Well, the recidivism rate is high that's part of it, I believe, and just knowing it, right? Because that's my work. So I'm the director of the Women and Girls Project at Catal Center for Health, Equity, and Justice in New York. And we have an office in Albany, New York City, and also in Connecticut. So we have 2 states. So, and just being a researcher, right? And understanding this, why do we have such a high recidivism rate? Well, first of all, right, the programs that are not in prison and the way in which prisons are designed. They're, by their very nature, they're violent. By their very design, they're violent. And something's wrong with that. Something's wrong with that because they shouldn't be. We know people need ways to okay, you did something wrong, whatever. But why are they so violent? Why are we treating people less than? Less than. Why do we think that it's okay if we hear about officers beating someone nearly to death, that's okay? That only instigates it just makes you more angry, and you just become so filled with hate and anger and just so much, and this revenge, it's wrong. But this is the culture of our prisons and our jails. There are no good prisons, there are no good jails, right? And so will programs help? They would help because they will give people the skills that they need to survive when they're released. People come out after spending decades in prison and probably didn't even get an education. What are they gonna do? Especially in today's world. I have a master's where I can't handle that phone to save my life. There's just not. I don't even know how to create an email, just saying, but we do our best, but I can read to understand and I can look at YouTube and figure it out, right? But imagine someone that doesn't even have that, didn't get that opportunity, So that's why I think that, and I just know a lot of the recidivism rate is based on, but it's also based on other things. Before people went in, the home might have been broken if there was a home. The resources in the community might not have been what other communities have, right? So when a person comes out and they're released, what are they doing? People aren't opening the door and saying, oh yes, you can come work for me. You can come do this, no. But I guarantee you that the person that has spent any amount of time in prison would be the best person. Not saying that if you weren't in prison that you would be best, but is a really good person to give an opportunity, a job to. Because that person will be there before you get there and after you leave, probably still be there doing whatever they need, because people are just looking for that chance, that opportunity, that moment that somebody says, okay, I believe in you. People just need to be believed in. Okay. Jeez.
The more I listen to you, the more I wanted to share an analogy that I'm thinking of. That is what you talked about, the national criminal justice system, and I'm thinking more and more about the international justice alternatives that exist, in particular truth and reconciliation commissions. And so I was wondering, the part of your experience that has to do with victimization, And when you see after the incarceration is over and how the marginalization still continues, it sounds as if such a forum, a national version of a truth and reconciliation effort could be a way to go in order to continue the work in a more systemic way. Not all individuals are as strong as you and able to use that experience, write the narrative, and go out and be a speaker. But so in order to lift the whole group of people who were also victimized before they themselves committed crimes, such a platform might be a way to go. And it's been tried at the international level, but primarily, so it would be all new. It has to be done in a new way. But the idea is still there that you, through truth telling, the ability and the audience's willingness to listen to your account, to distribute accountability to, not just to one person, but perhaps society overall. And after that, be reconciled, which definitely means to be included, not to be excluded again. So it seems as if such a post-conflict, that's what we call it, post-conflict justice mechanism, could perhaps do some good for that group.
Thank you for that. So there are some states in this country that allow for restorative justice practices, right? And that's what that is. And so New York doesn't. There's a whole lot. There's only a handful that does. And so, like, I myself wanted to reach out to Mr. B's family to whatever I could say to them. Short might not, but I just wanted to say because I felt I needed to say it, right? It was my own reckoning, but New York doesn't allow it. So what I did was write letters. I was in the writing program, and I was writing to him, writing to the family. And what I did was also publish one in my book. I put it in my book, so if at least even if they ever looked at it or someone knows them, could say that, right? It's the most I could do. And this is the best that I could do for me. But there are many more like me. I'm not the only person that's around this country speaking and you know, a criminal justice activist or whatever. Actually, I'm considered a leader in this movement, right, for women and girls. And so I own that and I acknowledge that because I know it's still a difficult, it's just still difficult. And especially when we talk about violence and trauma and abuse. And so we're trying to work towards that. I just was in Africa and I learned a lot just being there the few days that I was there. And one of the things that stands out for me when you were talking is that what happened in Rwanda with the Tutsis and the Tutsis, what happened with them and how they're reconciling and their restorative justice practices. So we know that two tribal people were killing each other, right? Tutsis more so than anyone. So, and they were really doing harm. And they were brothers and sisters. I mean, they're just different tribes or whatever. And the massacres that happened. But today, the person that killed, I watched something and I met some women. The person, a man that killed her children and her husband is now helping her, built a home for her. He's helping her do work around her area. He helps her with groceries. He's just helping her. And even though she's still in pain and she's whatever, she's able to have a conversation with him. She's able to talk with him, you know, and sometimes we might not be able to understand, still get it, understand it, because we just sometimes won't understand or get it. But at least it will be that moment where a person can, you know, face that person, they can face each other and have that, you know, and sometimes it creates a relationship that we never thought possible. But this country is not ready for that. It doesn't appear ready for that. But it's going to take us to change that, right? It's gonna take us to do that. I think the more, that's why I go out and I speak. Whoever invites me and I go speak. I've been invited into very hostile places, but I stand up and I still hold my ground and I hold myself. I hold on to my truth and my experience because we have to change. We need to change. We have been so comfortable for so long that it's horrible. It's not okay to turn on news or whatever every single day, every hour, and hear that another school has been shot up. And why? Why? Why didn't we recognize something was wrong? Why are we making fun of the guy, the girl that wants to dress a certain way or act a certain way? Why do we want to ostracize each other? Why do we care that a person has more melanin in their skin or not? Why do we care if a person dresses differently? Why do we care if a person's hair is short or long? Why do we care if someone's pretty or not, whatever that means or not? Why do we care if a person's educated or not? Why are these things so more important than the person's humanity? Than just the person? The more we focus on the things that don't really matter, the worse we're getting. Just today, I turned on the TV, I was staying down the road, and I heard about the shootout near a school in Chicago. I was like, oh my God, it's like so, like, I'm just like, too much. But it's gonna take us to get out of our comfort zone of being quiet, of being complicit, because silence is being complicit. When we are silent, we are complicit of whatever it may be. And we should not be that way. And every time I speak to people, I just try to touch, I try to get you to see me as a human being. I might have made a mistake, I might have made a really horrible mistake, but I'm not that mistake. I never was. And I'm not going to be today and tomorrow and the day after. I'm just not going to be that person. And there are many more people like me who just want the opportunity to do that. But there are people that have not even been in prison that we're still treating in a way as if they're less than or they're not important, and we don't care about them. And that's wrong. And if we know that something is wrong, it's okay to speak up. It's okay. I don't have to be friends with the most popular person because the most popular person is like not a good person. They need to learn a lesson too. You know what I mean? We just shouldn't be that way. We're better than that. We're really better than that. We're beautiful, amazing, brilliant people as a whole. And we can have a beautiful, amazing, and just bright world. Definitely country. We have to start at home. We really need to start at home. Yes,
Hi. I'm so glad you came here.
thank you.
I teach women in crime, so we deal with these issues a lot. And I don't know if you already spoke to this issue or not, but I would love for you to speak to how the increase of the imprisonization, incarceration of women is affecting families.
Absolutely. So in the last 40 years, to your point, there's been an increase, steady increase of the incarceration of women. So in the last 40 years, it's been like almost a 900% increase in women being incarcerated, women and girls. And what that's doing to communities is tearing families apart. And there's a lot of mental health that's happening or in the lives of women right now because of that, because of their being taken out. I'm not saying they did something wrong or not, but actually it's because mental health was one of the reasons in the first place that wasn't being addressed, or health issues or some other issues. And so women and drug issues, right? Incarceration has become the response to everything that we don't want to deal with. Drug addiction, we don't want to deal with it, so we incarcerated people. But now it's a crisis, so now we're going to deal with it, right? It kind of shifted a little bit, right, in this date. So women, the vast majority of women of color, just plain and simple, are women of color. And our jails and prisons are filled with women of color who have probably really not done anything that you would really think that they should be incarcerated for. But then some have. But we're not looking at the root causes. We're not looking at the family dynamic and what that does to the family. Now, we're not saying the response should be to incarcerate the woman and her children or her child, because that just wouldn't be right. But I think that we can find other ways in which to treat people, to deal with people in these situations. And so even criminalize women of color, criminalized based on their color. women of color are just criminalized for whatever. And that's just really the reality. It's really the reality. We just have to face that as well. Be uncomfortable enough to be comfortable to say, you know what, that's true. That's true. That's just what it is. Because the opioid crisis, what I call a heroin addict or a dope fiend or whatever, now it's an opioid crisis and you need help, but I don't. So lock me up, but you should get treatment. There's something wrong with that.
I agree. I agree. I'm really referring to also what happens to children
Yes.
if you don't have family and their possibility of getting involved in the criminal justice system themselves.
I write about that in my book because I watched it affect so many women. It almost happened to me. Women who have children or child, if there's no family support, which oftentimes there's not, the child or children are snatched up and put into the system, the foster care system. I have women now who have been out before I got out 7 years ago who are still looking for their child or their children. They can't find them because what the system has done is taken the child away, and then after a certain amount of time, if there's no mother around, they say, oh, well, 18 months, well, the child is now up for adoption, can be put under the care of the foster system, and so now you've lost your rights, and no one ever asked you about them anyway. And so a child probably is of age who knows their mother, grew up with their mother at some point, like I did, my mother in Jamaica, and so I know her, and they know their mothers, and now they can't find their mother, they have no contact, the system doesn't allow you to keep contact, you can't, there are no records to tell you where the child is gone, and they don't want that to happen. And so there are many women that are walking around who've lost their child or their children. And there are many children who have lost their mother and put into a place that they know that's not home for them. And so that's why they react as well, and that causes behavior, right? And we have to look at all these steps and stages that cause these behaviors to happen, and then we want to incarcerate them because of these behaviors, but we're not looking at what we've contributed to that as well.
Or how to help them.
Right, no help at all. Thank you for that, it's important. Yes, honey.
I know you said that it's difficult when you get out, so how did you build yourself to bring back out everywhere?
You mean how am I able to stand here and talk to you?
No, like where did you start?
Get employment? How
Like, yeah, where did you
How did I do that? Because I think so, I guess I'm kind of unique, right? It's not always this way, but I came out and I had already built a support system when I was inside. Friends oftentimes become the family that you make and you keep, because there's no other family. That family surely didn't come visit me or take care of me. But I got so involved with that core group. I was the core group of the women that created these programs that I kind of built a reputation for myself, and I had my education. I received my education, and so when I came out, I didn't know what I wanted. I had absolutely no clue what I was going to do. 27 years later, I felt like Donna Van Winkle, right? I was like, this is a new world. The cars were hovering. I was walking down the street. I remember I was released in Brooklyn. I was walking down the street with a friend who came to get me, to take me to parole, because I didn't know where it was. But we were walking, and I'm seeing people talking, and I see someone yelling and screaming and cursing, and I was like, God, mental health is real out here. Oh my God. I didn't know. So I was walking like this, and on my head was up high. It was like I didn't want anyone to think that I was some kind of like alien again. And I was like, oh my God, everybody's talking to themselves. So my friend was with me, she was like, Donna, she said, you all right? I was like, yeah. I was like, how much further do we have to go? She's like, Donna, no, are you all right? I was like, yeah. I said, but I don't understand why everyone's talking to themselves. There's so much mental health out here. She was like, girl, that's a Bluetooth. Oh, wait. I was like, Bluetooth? And she's like, yeah, they're talking to a Bluetooth. So here I go. I went back to being 5. I was looking for something blue. It looked like a tooth. Like, what are they talking to? How are they talking to someone? They were having full conversations. And I was like, people are gone. And so when I recognized that there was stuff in the air, I was like, oh, I still don't recognize sometimes. I still feel like, oh, okay. So it's a lot. It's overwhelming. I spent almost 3 decades. I went in 1985. You don't know anything about that. So back then there were toaster ovens that you had to, turn the knob, and you just didn't set it automatically. Now they talk to you. Siri tells you where to go, how to get lost, because she tells me how to get lost. I mean, all these things I didn't have it, right? It didn't happen. So when they put me out in 2012, I was like, I didn't remember how to ride a train. I didn't know that so in New York, there's the subway card, right? They call it a Metro card. I was looking for the token, that little thing that you put in the slot and put in. I was on the bus. I was trying to get to a job interview. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know what to do with the card. So I'm standing there and the bus driver was so nasty and mean to me. He was like, what is wrong with you? You never been on a bus before? So I was like, well, where I come from, there weren't any buses. I didn't know what else to say, but I didn't respond to that. So there's still those moments. There's still those moments. In New York, our lights, the white figure says go, and there's the red figure that says stop. So I remember somebody teaching me, he's like, Donna, the lights are different. So look, the red man says go, red man says stop, the white man says go. Just remember that. I was like, what? And then I saw the traffic light, I was like, oh, they got pictures of me now. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. So I think that because people knew who I was and what I had done and knew of my work, they gave me a chance. And I went in and I spoke, and that's all I asked for, is just a chance. That's all anybody ever really wants. It's just a chance, an opportunity. I could be the best street sweeper there is. Why? Because I just want that chance. I will clean up this town because I just want that chance. And so I just held on to that. Now, I didn't know I was going to come out here and become the activist and leader that I am. That happened because of Sister Mary, who I talked about. I came out January 17th. 2 days later, by January 19th, she had me speaking at John Jay College in New York about, domestic violence. And I was like, she was like, oh, you do it all the time. You've been doing it in there for years. You could do it out here. It's no different. And it just started happening organically. And I realized, I think what happened, I was at Riverside Church and I spoke about my experience. And I remember someone standing up and opening up for the first time, talking about them being a victim of abuse, and I recognized then that my words can change, has the capacity to help somebody else stand up and take their power back. Because once we continue to give our power to those people or to those things that harmed us or can harm us, then we lose all power, or we lose ourselves. And that's why I said we need to tap back into our humanity, tap back into who we are as people, because we're allowing so many things to take that power from us that we've become so dehumanized and insensitive or desensitized.
We can't hear you.
She said, how would I encourage women as a whole to come together? To tell their story? Well, first we need to come together, right? So, I don't know, I think one of the things we need to do is to understand, there's no need to be jealous. There's no need to be competitive. There's just no need for any of that. You are amazing and beautiful in your own right. What you do is what you do. That's your skill, that's your craft that you own. I can't do what you do. And so I open myself to you, I learn. I think when we look at each other and to understand that we can learn from each other, and we can learn with each other, we could also build with each other, right? Instead of looking, it's like that analogy about not looking at the glass half empty, but looking at it half full. So if we look at each other with another lens, a lens of love and understanding, and even if it's not love in the moment, just an understanding, just a compassion or an empathy, and just that's just another person. Why am I looking at her any kind of way different than I would want to be looked at myself? I always relate, well, how would I want, what would I do? I do that now, I'm in my head all the time, and I'm always asking myself, is this the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? I hope that I don't hurt someone. I'm very conscious of that. But society now has so many things to distract us. I'm on the subway in New York and people are playing, I'm hearing all these people, all these things going on like this. I mean, everybody's got the thing, whatever, but they're not listening to music or anything. They're playing all these games and, they don't care about the next person. They can see somebody being hurt. Oh wait, Candyland, I've been Candy Crush, or oh no, I gotta get to this next whatever. It's so much a distraction. I think the more we get distracted by these things, the less we become, we hold on to our humanity. But for women, I would just start, it starts with you. It starts with you. look at your friend, your neighbor, your person next to you is like, hey, wanna go have some coffee? Wanna go have tea? Not play a game. Not play Candy Crush, whatever it is. But like, look at each other, you know, and do that. And that's what I try to do with people. I try to show that, you know, and I think it just takes one person. It could have a domino effect. Why is it always the negative stuff that has this domino effect? Let's make the positive stuff have that as well. Yes?
I think you had an advantage
I have an advantage.
because you had no technology, nothing to draw you
You're right.
away from the people that you had. The relationships that you made and grew are the things that supported you. And now we are separated every day by device, by media, and instead of moving everyone forward, people just want to move themselves forward.
That's true.
And we have changed how we look at society. So in a way, you came out with a blessing
That's
in
true.
2012, something different than the 20 years of being outside. You would have been.
I agree with you. Sad to say, it's true, right? I had to go in such a dark, abnormal place to, right? But, right, so I was removed from this. But you just did it right now. You recognized it, right? And you got it. So if you could share that with someone else and say, hey, let's put the phone down. Let's just have dinner, or let's just whatever, just you and I, or you or we, right? And let's just do this, right? Get back into doing this, if you don't mind. Doing this, right? And so, oh my gosh, he's warm. Instead of touching this cold thing that's metal and plastic or whatever, and just, like, that's not our world. That's just not who we are. We weren't.
It shouldn't be.
We just right. Yeah. We shouldn't want to lose the beauty that is us and that this world has given us, because we've been honored to be here. Like, we've been honored, and I think that we should go back to understanding that.
I just want to add, however, technology has helped bring the Me Too movement for women to speak out and see how they are
That's
related
uses.
to each
Oh, I'm not
other,
saying to
you know.
completely get rid of
Yeah.
it. I think, like, I use my social media platforms not to tell God. I don't do that. Like, I just don't do that. I'm not certain things, like, I'm not sharing that. I try to share things that people can understand and communicate with. It's a tool to be used as communication and to keep people in touch of whatever. But it doesn't mean it has to take up 24/7.
Oh, absolutely
You know what I mean? I
Absolutely
think
not.
there we can have time to sit at the dinner table. I've watched families. I watched families in restaurants, and they give the child I think what's that thing called a tap. What is that small one? What's the little small one that you? The computer, laptop, or iPad. Thank you. You see, I'm struggling. An iPad, and give this other one a phone, and put the game on whatever, and the wife and the husband are doing that. And now I'm like, who's talking to each other here? The kids are going crazy. They're like this and knocking over the stuff because they're not getting attention. They're tired of doing it because they don't really want to do it so much and just want some attention. But we're losing that. We lost that. Like Families are in the same house and they're texting each other. So it's like, hey, come, whatever, bring me this or whatever. Like, you texted. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Yeah, we're better than that. Thank you for being here. I just want to really thank you. And I hope that I've said something to instigate some kind of thought, that might instigate change within you and your surroundings. And just take whatever I've said, whatever you feel that you want to take, and just take it back with you and just share it. And just, I just believe that we can just become really better human beings, full of love. Thank you.